That's what we refer
Leif
to
Erikson.
at our house. It's
Okay.
Leif Erikson.
Okay. All
Columbus
right.
was a Johnny come lately.
Any questions on the application?
I'll move I'll move to acknowledge the off-sale malt beverage and wine application for Dollar General and set the date of hearing on Monday, October 8th at 5:35.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded that we acknowledge the off-sale malt beverage and wine application from Dollar General with the date of hearing to be Monday, October 8th at 5:35 p.m. Any questions or speaking? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is carried. Number 3, under appearances, acknowledgments, correspondence, would be to acknowledge the August investment report, the gross salaries, and the bills for ratification.
I would make a motion to acknowledge the August investment report, gross salaries, and bills for ratification.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded that we acknowledge the August investment report, gross salaries, and bills for ratification. Any questions or speaking? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion is carried. We have one item listed under old business, and the time being 5:35 p.m. This is a hearing scheduled on a malt beverage and video lottery license application for Trojan Tap. Any information? Mr. Beckman is here. Do you have anything to add to the?
Have an empty building, you have to do something with it.
Okay. I have had no concerns or comments expressed. Any comment from any of the commissioners? Jeff, would we need 2 motions then? One for the
Please.
license and one for the
Well, actually, excuse me.
video lottery?
No,
I think
we don't
we only
need two.
Only need the one, right?
Yes. It would only be if you're going to deny him video lottery, you would let me know. Because
Okay.
on the application, it says, check the box if he's ineligible for video lottery
Okay.
on his alcohol application. So
So
he's
we
got it unless you say
So we
he
can do
can't.
it with one motion if we're going to pass everything.
Yeah, one motion will take
Okay.
care of
Yes.
the whole.
Yes.
I would make a motion to approve the malt beverage and video lottery licenses for the Trojan Tap.
Now second it.
Motion is made and seconded that we approve the malt beverage application and video lottery license applications for Trojan Tap. Any questions or speaking on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is carried.
Jeff, could you note the minutes that I abstained from participation?
Commissioner Erickson abstained. Okay. Thank you,
Thanks,
Ron. Okay. Under new business, 3 items. Resolution 2817, a grant application for LAIC. Jeff, what is your comment there?
I received this from Julie Gross of the LAIC last week, that some time ago, they had been approved through Senator Johnson's office for a grant to extend, what road is that, you know?
Industry Avenue.
Industry Avenue, continue it on to the south. That's the street, it runs north and south, halfway down the newest section of the industrial park, east. So it's west of John Deere, that street, that little half street that runs north and south.
It'd be, as we discussed, I think, Chad, the street on the new platting of Global Polymer. It'd be just to the east side of that,
That's correct.
Yeah. So this would run east of Global Polymer,
north and south.
north and south.
And I think it runs all the way to the end of our property, doesn't it? To the industrial park?
Actually, the road shows that it does go all the way down in the master plan. That's correct, yes. Whether this grant is completed all the way down to the end, I'm not sure.
Okay. But the road, this road would run north-south
Right.
all the way.
Correct.
I've never worked with an economic development initiative grant, but it appears that they use the same guidelines or process as the community development block grants. This looks like a very similar resolution, and what this does is this authorizes the mayor to be the certifying officer for the environmental portion of it. And so we don't receive this grant. It looks like this grant is going directly to the LAIC and not through the city or to the city on behalf of LAIC, which you may recall was the case. We've had that a number of cases, the last one being ICAP for the Rosebud Building. That's actually a grant to the city on behalf of ICAP. This is not like that. This is directly, it appears to me to be directly to them. Ted Hayter from the First Planning District will assist them and us in filing the proper documents. If you approve this tonight, then we're asking that the mayor sign the first of the environmental letters, which will be to the Historical Preservation Office in Pierre. There's a whole process for environmental. Chad knows more about that than I do. You go through historical preservation and these other environmental groups to make sure that there's not some old burial ground or something out there.
And we're just basically authorizing the mayor on
To
behalf
sign
of
the
the.
documents.
Okay,
The city is not obligated for anything
Right.
on this at all. This will not, as I understand, will not hurt the city's chances of receiving any other grants, because this was a special appropriation, as I remember, through Senator Johnson's office in Congress.
seems more of a formality, and it seems more like a, I mean, it's good to
High-paying job.
keep us in the
Yeah,
loop of it. so,
Right.
But,
I've been called a lot of things, but not an environmental.
well, now you're gonna get another hat.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move to adopt Resolution 2817, the grant application for the LAIC, which would authorize the mayor to act as the designating certifying officer for environmental purposes.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to approve Resolution 2817 regarding the grant application for the LAIC and authorizing the mayor, City of Madison, to serve as the city's environmental certifying officer and signing environmental correspondence and other required documents and forms. Any questions or speaking? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is carried. New business number 2, authorize mayor to sign South Dakota DOT pavement management agreement. Chad, I guess this is your area. Airport,
Yeah,
another document for the airport improvement project.
this, I can talk some about this, Jeff maybe has some items as well, but this is related to the land acquisition of the 17 acres. The federal government, as part of a grant that's already been submitted to them, grant application, I believe is the correct terminology, they're gonna cover 90% of the costs for this acquisition, which has already taken place. We coordinated with our consultant and the South Dakota Department of Transportation and their aeronautics office and the FAA Corp parties as well to facilitate this process. And this is basically the agreement that between the city and the state for the state share. There's 10% remaining. The feds are paying 90, so there's 10% remaining. This outlines that the state is paying 8%, and then the local share is the 2%. So this is just a formality and as I understand it, the next step in the process of getting the funding arrangement finalized, so to speak.
I was wondering, Chad, why it's called a pavement management agreement. There's no pavement involved here because this is land for the grass runway.
That's
The pavement-
might be
Pavement's already in, the cross runway.
Chad doesn't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that either.
We won't
I'm
argue.
sorry about that, it was on my
Yeah, I kept
list.
looking in the agreement for the pavement. I didn't see it either.
I don't know how it got in there as payment
Okay.
management, but it's an agreement with the state to reimburse us for 8% of the cost of the land.
Okay.
I noticed, Mr. Mayor, just as a point of interest, in the airport board minutes that we did acknowledge earlier tonight that that was considered at their meeting, and it was, I guess, approved and to recommend approval by us. So they
Terminology they use there.
They said the airport pavement maintenance agreement and that, and the minutes for the airport board meeting, number 2.
Okay.
Make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the agreement with South Dakota DOT for reimbursement of the land acquisition for the airport runway extension.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded that the mayor be authorized to sign the agreement regarding the airport improvement project with South Dakota Department of Transportation as described in the documents. Any questions or speaking?
Just as a reminder that this is because the federal government lowered their cost share from 95% to 90%. But for this year, the state decided to pick up the 5% that we lost. So, and now, from now on, we're going to be out that 5% that we were getting from the feds.
Next time.
Okay. If there's any further speaking, if not, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is carried. The business number 3, approve specifications on used excavator and set date of bid letting. Fred, I guess this is yours.
We've talked for quite a while about the Public Works Department picking up a excavator to take care of creek maintenance. We've got a restricted use site that we need to dig here in the next year or so, and also for some like wintertime water breaks that we can't get to, like we had down at the water plant where we ended up having to get a contractor to come in and help us finish that out. We discussed this during budget times, and the monies and stuff are sitting in the vehicle and equipment replacement reserves, depreciation schedule. So this would be for a used excavator that we'd like to get in here and see what we get for some bids on that.
Okay.
You're looking at purchasing it this year?
I'd like to
Okay.
toward the end of the year. I thought it'd be like a 1 December type response.
I know there were some discussions earlier that we couldn't do it till next year, but since it's coming out of that reserve,
Yeah,
it can.
Yeah,
It just-
it can. It just depends on what's out there and what's available. So this would actually let us know what is out there, so.
In
What
2
is the
weeks.
approximate timetable, Fred, for digging the new cell at the restricted use site out there?
Well, it estimated that we lost 2 years due to the flood and the citywide cleanup, so I was looking at actually, our agreement says I need to let the landowner know prior to March, this coming March, and I was thinking that we'd possibly start that in the spring and get out there and actually get going on that, because it's getting used up pretty quick. So I'd like to get a little ahead of the game and get that new cell dug. It'll take a while to get that squared away. So that's what we're intending to do.
What was the cost when we dug that last cell out there about, what, 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
We were somewhere around 90,000 is what I saw as far as the old agreement and the cost of that, what I could find.
Mhm. Okay.
What, as far as the creek cleanup, what would you do with that? I mean, what would
Well, we've got
is that
some-
something you can use throughout town, or is there?
I believe we can.
Okay.
I've got actually a line on one, just a rental. It's the size that we're kind of looking at, you know, in that general area that we can actually rent for a bit. And it should be here in about the next week or so, and we can, you know, see if that's what we need, or we need something a little smaller, you know, we can adjust at that point. But
How often do you think you need to do it, or what is the timetable for the creek? I mean, can you do it all in a year? Is it do portions of it continuously? You do it, or is it doing it once and not coming back to it for 5 years, or what's kind of your thought process on that?
Well, we've got some, because of the flooding, we've got a little different thing going on this year. I mean, we've got some rock dam that's actually forming, it'd be south and east of.
In the last block, north of the water
Where
treatment
the
plant.
complaint from last week that they brought up, is that?
Well,
What?
That's a couple other ones. We
Okay.
do have a couple other areas that we need to get back to. We started last year on the north end of town, 9th Street, and worked our way down to about Garfield and got some of that pulled back. We've got some riprap that Chad's got online that we're gonna use, and that'll help us place that.
Do we need to redo that area that you already did because of the flood, or is that still?
I think it's in still relatively good shape.
Okay.
I haven't gone back and done a thorough inspection. My goal was to actually get the southern portion of town, the southeast portion
Okay.
that we didn't get to, and get that kind of straightened up and cleaned out a little bit. So there are some areas that we do need to get working on. And that's why I've got that rental piece of equipment coming, that we can actually get in there and try that out in those areas and see if it'll fit for us.
And we got personnel that can handle it and do
Yes, we
those
do.
things for us, so
Right.
we can hopefully mitigate or at least minimize some of the flooding issues perhaps.
Well, that's. what-
Minimize,
Yeah,
Yeah.
some of it, it'll minimize some of it.
it'll help, but,
Like I said, Chad and I are on a committee that's looking into the flooding
right.
subcommittee and stuff, so, and you are too.
Yeah.
So there are some
Yep,
recommendations
that's
that
why-
are coming out of that. so.
It's
And that rock dam was actually one of the topics that were discussed on, was it Thursday morning?
Thursday morning.
Yeah. I think it would prove a very useful piece of equipment to have in the future as other projects come up and arise. It's not limited to only doing these things, you know, as there could probably be, if we'd had it before, when we had to knock down and clean up the Rosebud building, it would have been a large undertaking, but we could have potentially handled that ourselves. It's a very useful tool. I think it will pay for itself several times over in savings.
How much room do we have out at the restricted use site for additional capacity cells out there? Is there room for one more or two more, or?
I think at least one good sized one, we might be able to get two out of it. There's a section to the south of existing cell that's opened up, and then there's one back to the east
Okay.
that I think that we can get up onto, I think is in the agreement. I don't have the agreement with me to look at the map, but I think that's what it shows.
If we decide to continue, before we have to decide on more property for the restricted use site, right?
I think we're good for quite a few years with what we have currently,
Okay.
barring any huge floods in the future that, you know, we have extra debris and things that we'd have to put out there. But normal use, I think, would be good for a while.
Okay.
I guess my question, Fred, and you and I have had this discussion before, but, you know, when we've gone to the reserve fund for you, you've again searched your soul, and this is the item that has bubbled up to the top, and recognizing that's a large expenditure of your reserve on one item.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I've taken your advice to heart, and I've actually looked at that 2 or 3 times now, just to
I
make sure.
thought you would. I just,
that
you know,
we're
like I said, I
safe,
just
so-
don't want to be saying, well, we should have saved our money and bought 3 other deals, so
No, everything
Okay.
else looks like it's in pretty good condition.
that's what I
now,
need
so-
to hear.
What would be the date for the opening on this?
What would that be?
Can we put it all the way up to about
October 10th.
10th day of
October
October,
10th. Here at
10 o'clock
10
a.m.
a.m.
10 a.m., October 10th.
And I would make a motion to approve the specifications on the used excavator and set date and time at 10 a.m. October 10th for bids.
Second.
Okay, the motion is made and seconded that we approve the specifications on a used excavator and set the date of bid letting for 10 a.m. on Wednesday, October 10th, right? Wednesday, October 10th.
Yes.
Was that the date you wanted?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Any further questions or speaking? Yes, sir.
Yep.
Sure.
I got several questions and things for the commission to consider on this excavator purchase. My first question is, what projects are on the table to justify the purchase of this machine? I've heard landfill and I've heard crick. But yet, we've been playing with this crick project for the last 10 years, so now why all of a sudden is the crick the main thing?
I think the flood would have to be a pretty big indicator of it. I think it's kind of a mandate that I think all of us can say, I don't want to speak for anybody, I guess I can say, that's one of the main things that have been brought to, during the complaints, was that we need to deal with the crick on the flood. That's, the citizens have told me that, I guess. I'll let the other.
I think that's a fairly resounding topic that's been brought up, that they want to see progress made cleaning out the creek.
Okay.
And I don't think the creek's going anywhere soon. So it's gonna be, it's gonna be an ongoing project.
Yep.
Okay.
That along with maintenance. I mean, we got problems with the creek, and Chad could speak to that too with our rock wall project. So the creek is gonna be an ongoing project for,
What other problems do we have with the creek besides being cleaned out?
the rock walls.
The rock wall and the collapsing of those masonry walls at various locations, and so we invest money yearly to address those areas, collapsing areas, and repair them and such like that, so.
Okay, but the rock wall wouldn't have any consideration for excavator use. Anytime that you've had a creek repair, creek wall repair.
Occasionally, we would, Fred's staff will do this, but what I understand is that we'll be excavating some of the debris in the creek area that is blocking structures and other areas that has been brought in through the stream load from the creek. And then at different times, that's either placed up against the edges of the wall to kind of protect the toe of the wall, or if material's excavated out, sometimes we can put some more suitable protective material like riprap in place of anything that's excavated and removed as well. So that would be probably the process for that.
Okay, then I've heard that we're gonna dig a cell with this, a landfill cell. What are the dimensions of the landfill cell?
I couldn't tell you right now, Mike, I don't know them off the top of my head. If I pattern it after the one that's out there, I'd still have to go back and look at the drawings on it, because I don't remember the dimensions.
If I remember right, the length of one of those cells is 400 to 500 feet. And the width is, don't hold me to this, the width is over 100 feet. I don't remember the depth. An excavator is not the thing to dig your cell with. That's a scraper job. The excavator is one of the poorest choices you can make, because you're digging deep at this end, you're bringing the dirt back up to the high end. You'll be moving your dirt 4 and 5 and 6 times. You've got to have compaction. You won't get compaction when you dig and dump, dig and dump. So the excavator, as far as the landfill, that's not a valid point.
So you can't dig a landfill site with an excavator?
Oh, you can if you want to escalate your costs by about 10 times.
So paying for fuel and paying a $12 an hour employee is comparable with $90,000?
Well, if the only cost for your employee was $12 an hour, but if you take into health insurance, unemployment,
Okay, so $20 an hour.
Let's try $35 an hour.
Is that feasible, Jeff? $35 an hour employee?
What now? On a guy making
Roger sitting out at the landfill.
50% more than their wage.
Okay, so $25 maybe. Okay. It's a lot of hours.
Yeah, but just, I mean, you say you spent $90,000 on your last sell, right? Is that what you said?
I did say that.
So if you go 10 times that, that's $1 million.
Why would we go 10 times that?
It'll take you 10 times as long, I'm not here to argue that, but it'll take you 10 times as long to do your sell as what it would with a scraper. I mean, you can talk to any engineer, Chad could address this issue. This is, I'm not here to argue that. I'm here to tell you that this purchase is a little bit on the ridiculous side. That's my opinion. Got another question for you. What equipment is the city planning to purchase to mobilize this equipment? How are you gonna move it around?
Well, we've discussed it. We're aware that there'll have to be some accommodation, whether it's a lowboy with some other tractor, that's been discussed.
What's the price of a lowboy?
Well, I've heard some people talk.
You can, yeah, you could purchase one as, for what we're going to need, probably as cheap as $12,000 to $15,000.
Where would this be at?
I've seen
What
three.
What tonnage would this be?
Well, this is only a 50,000-pound machine, so we don't need a huge one. We don't need a 5 or 7 axle lowboy.
How many axles do we need?
At 50,000, 3.
And you can buy a trailer for 12,000.
That's what Brandon Severs bought his for. Actually, it was 93, I believe he paid.
Okay,
We don't need one tomorrow. We don't have to buy it tomorrow. We can shop.
What do we have for a tractor to pull it?
We don't have a semi at this point.
Okay, so that's another added cost. I beg to differ at 12,000. For getting a detachable gooseneck with a 50,000 or a 50-ton rating is close to $50,000. And you go detachable because you wouldn't want to load off the tail end. So add that into your, add another 80 to 100,000 for mobilization.
It just went from 50 to 80 to 100,000.
Well, the tractor,
Is 50,000?
most likely, yes, if you're gonna get a diesel.
Well, and I understand, Mike, you have a dog in this fight. Let's put that out on the table, don't you?
Sure I do.
Yeah, sure you do. Well, let's talk about that. So let's talk about reality. Let's talk about how far we're gonna move this vehicle. We're not moving it out of Lake County, so we're not gonna be getting one to drive it to North Dakota, the oil fields. Now, I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm just gonna say that if you wanna be realistic and present an argument, do it in a realistic manner. Don't start with one number and inflate it to a different one. Don't tell me that you have to buy a $35,000 trailer when trailers can be purchased for less than that. Don't tell me you have to buy a $50,000 tractor when you can buy a tractor for less than that. If you want to make the argument, fine, but make it a realistic argument. You'll have a better chance with me if you want to make it that way.
Can I interject something for just a moment?
Ask him.
Mike, can I interject something for just a moment?
Go ahead.
You don't even know what you're talking about. You haven't even looked at a trailer or semi yet. You're sitting up there telling us numbers? Mike's got a more realistic value of numbers than you'll ever have.
Thank you, George, for telling me something I don't know.
May I interject, Mike?
Sure.
What is the other cells, what did they use to build them?
We've never used an excavator. The
Well,
city.
I'm asking the commission. As far as I know, they've only used scrapers. That's the logical thing to use. You gotta carry the dirt away. And like Mike said, get compaction. Backhoe ain't gonna do it, or an excavator.
No, but the dozer that's out there will.
Well, then why do we need an excavator if you got a dozer out there?
Dozer, you could dig with a dozer, but it's not feasible. It's gonna take a lot longer. But as far as digging it, moving it, and then pushing it up the hill, you certainly could use that track loader for that.
That don't look feasible when all the contractors have always used,
Because they have a scraper.
no, because they can make more money, it takes less time, it's more practical, that's why they're doing it.
Granted, but if you have an excavator, you can certainly do it yourself.
Do you know what it costs to overhaul an engine in an excavator? You have any idea?
I don't.
You wouldn't get by for less than 15,000. There's a lot of hydraulics.
Any other questions or comments?
I'd like to interject something else if Mike's done.
No, I'm not
Oh,
done, but
okay, go right ahead.
Well, let's move on. Let's make your point. Make your
I got
point.
a couple more questions.
Okay, go ahead.
You know, and I don't appreciate being told that I'm inflating my numbers because I've been in the business for 32 years.
I just,
No, just let me
I'll
finish,
listen, I'll let you
and then I'll
finish.
let you finish. Is I know what a truck tractor, a decent one, yeah, you can go around in nickel and dime and get a $10,000, $12,000 deal, and it's not gonna work. To get a decent truck tractor, you're gonna spend at least $30,000. To get a dependable trailer that's not cracked, not broke, that's DOT satisfied with brakes, you're not gonna get one for $12,000.
How
So when
much
I'm
you
telling
gonna
you
spend? How much you,
between 80 to 100,000, I spent 50,000 on my trailer 8 years ago, and it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, okay? So when I say that to get something decent is gonna be between 80 and 100, I'm not BSing you.
well, the reason I asked, I made that comment, because you started out with two numbers that did not add up to 80,000 or $100,000.
I said 50,000 for the trailer and 30,000 for the truck.
Okay, well, that's not what I heard. So if I misheard it, then I misheard it. But that's not what I understood. I stand by my comment that if you're coming in here and you have a dog in the fight, it certainly seems that you will present numbers that probably are not too favorable to the project.
I don't think that would be representative of why I'm here.
Okay, that's fine. Why are you here?
To show the commission, or to ask the commission if, and the powers that be, if they've thought this thing all the way through. Because me as a taxpayer, and also as a businessman, want to make sure that my dollar's getting spent the best way. And I can tell by the people that are here, there's a lot of, influence or a lot of concern about the way the tax dollars are spent by the attendance of meetings. But, if people that have a difference of opinion are, accused of, swaying the numbers and the statistics in their favor, they're not gonna wanna put up with that crap.
Well, I'm sorry, Mike, that's not my intention. My intention was to point out two things. One is that you actually have a professional interest in the project, and you'd agree with that.
I agreed with that.
All right, I just want to get that elephant out here on the table so we can all talk about it. All right, and that's fine. I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm doing a soul searching on this project because this is not my area of expertise, okay? I'm relying on advice that I'm getting. So I'm listening to your advice, but I'm listening to it very directly from where it's coming from. So what I'm telling you is you're going to have a better chance of talking to me if you talk to me as the taxpayer rather than Mike Johnson, the construction guy that wants to get the job with the city. Do you understand that? Is that fair?
Not a problem.
Okay. with that in mind, I'm very interested in your comments, and some people are making comments, and I appreciate those people, but I wish they would wait till, if they want to come forward, they could do it. But I would like to just talk about that. I've talked to different commissioners about this. I've tried to talk to Fred about it repeatedly, about the advisability. And I'm, like I said, I don't understand this. This is not what I do for a living. That's why I'm listening to, I want to listen to what you're saying. But let's do this in a reasonable manner. And if I offended you with the numbers, that's because the numbers I heard from you were a lot different than what I'm hearing other places. So let's just go from there.
Okay, besides, you know, I hear from the city, or from the street department, that we can't get to all the projects or things that need to be done now. And I'm wondering what changes are planned in the city's workforce if you're gonna take on these additional projects.
Which projects are we referring to, Mike?
Well, whatever projects you're gonna do with the excavator.
Well, it just depends on the priorities and stuff. That's how we lay the work schedule out. At certain times of year, we're chip sealing, we're hauling snow. It just depends on what's coming up. But with an excavator on hand, that gives us a little more flexibility to go do some things that do arise. How am I gonna schedule them in? Normally, we try to do creek cleaning in the fall. That's what we did with you last year.
But what I'm saying is, if, let's suppose you don't do creek cleaning in the wintertime, you're gonna do creek cleaning when the weather's favorable, most likely, that would be the choice. So you're gonna have people doing that when there are other things that the city should be doing that they're letting go to clean the creek, let's say. That's my point.
Well, when we had all of our trucks hauling, when you cleaned the creeks last year, we didn't put anything off. We still got back to the schedule and picked it up and got things done.
Okay, next question. Is how many hours a year would you put on this machine?
I have no idea right this second.
We must, I mean, you must have an idea. You're not gonna spend, now, this is a general, wide open, depending on what equipment you're getting, you know. So anywhere from 110 to 170,000. So you don't know if you're gonna run it 1 hour, or you're gonna run it 100 hours.
It works the same way with the loaders we've got sitting there. They're there for our use when we need them on special projects. We don't sit there and spec them out saying we're gonna put 300 hours a year on each piece of equipment, but yet we still have the need for those pieces of equipment.
Except that a loader is a much more versatile piece of equipment as a city asset than what an excavator would be.
They're all job specific, Mike.
Oh, I know that. I'm not stupid here. I own everything that I'm talking about
I
here.
know.
I own scrapers, I own dozers, I own loaders, I own excavators, I own dump trucks.
And I wasn't implying you were stupid. I'm just telling you that the way things are, we don't spec them out to say, okay, there's gonna be 250 hours a year guaranteed put on this equipment.
Well, apparently we have an idea. What I'm trying to get here is you must have an idea how many hours you're gonna put on this equipment. I mean, you've got projects laid out. I mean, how long do you think they're gonna take?
Well, we spent, what, 4 or 5 days last year, at 8 hours a day, just cleaning the creek out on what we got done. So that would take, what, 40 hours plus there. You've got, if we start digging on a cell out there between the dozer and the excavator, there'll be quite a few hours put on that piece of equipment.
So we're not sure how many hours. I mean, do you know how many yards of dirt are in a cell? Ballpark it?
Not right off the top
Just
of my
take a
head.
wild guess.
I prefer not to.
If you had to estimate a whole.
Why don't you just, nobody here knows, so go ahead and tell us. I mean,
No,
I don't mean to be rude, but we're not gonna be, there are things that he's not gonna be able to answer on this, and so just go ahead and tell him, we don't know.
No,
And I'm not trying to be argumentative, I'm just saying, we can
Okay,
speed
I
this
don't
up
know
by.
exactly, but you can
Okay.
do a rough calculation, 120 feet by 500 by an average of 8 feet deep. you know, and it will tell you. What I'm saying is, you're gonna be out there for 200-300 hours digging that cell with an excavator. I kid you not. I'm digging a pond right now, and a pond for a dugout for a guy is a lot smaller, and I'm having to move the dirt twice. And that's only in 40 feet. Anyway, next question. How many hours have you paid contractors for excavation, for excavator type work, other than sewer or water that you were unable to reach or were unstable in the past year?
Well, let's see, we've got at least close to 40 with you on creek cleaning. And then what'd you spend down at the end of the wastewater plant? You were down there for what, a day and a half? 2 days?
But most of the expense on that creek repair was rock, fabric, not excavator time. But see, the thing of it is I looked at my bill that I cleaned the creek out in October, it was 22 hours. Not 40.
Okay.
And I know you wouldn't know that off the top of your head, but what I'm saying is, you don't know how many hours you're gonna use this machine. You know, if you're talking, you're gonna use it 100 hours, and you got $160,000, $50,000, $40,000 machine sitting for 100 hours, and you're gonna use it 1 or 2 weeks out of a year, what are you gonna do after the creek's clean? You're not gonna clean it every year. You're not gonna dig a restricted use cell every year.
Well, like, my point back in the creek is, the creek's not going anywhere, so we're gonna need to clean it more than once.
But granted,
I do think, though, I think there's some things that we do need data. I think there's points on both sides, but I'd like to table this, because I think there are some things that we need to come up with.
Well, let's just stop for a minute, make sure we understand where we are. You can proceed with securing the bids.
Right, and not accept it.
You're not accepting any bids tonight,
Right.
you're not committing to buy anything tonight. All you're doing is committing to bid tonight. So certainly the commissioner has a right to ask that it be tabled, but if you proceed tonight, you're only proceeding to bid. This same discussion can be had at the time that this comes before the commission.
After the bid letting.
After the bid letting, and all of this information and more can be gathered and can be presented at that time. I would submit that's actually the more appropriate time. All you're doing tonight is deciding whether you're going to bid or not.
That'll give us an actual dollar amount,
Then
which
you'll
is
know
good
at least
too.
what you have to pay for the excavator itself. I know there's other attendant issues that are coming up, but what you're trying to decide on is, are you even going to bid the excavator? You're not trying to decide if you're gonna buy it.
Okay, that's a good point.
Point well made.
Yeah. But I do think between now and that time, I think these are good points. I think it's good to know exactly how many hours we're expecting to put on it, at least in a reasonable amount of years. Like to know how much we have spent. I mean, I think these are all valid points that we should have an answer to before we've done this. I think we should also have examples of pieces of equipment we can buy to haul it. I don't think any of these are unreasonable to have. You know, if we're gonna invest this amount of money, we should have these answers before we take a step forward, so.
I like the idea of the bid letting, so then we do know real numbers. And, you know, I mean, this obviously isn't my exact area of expertise, but I can look at numbers and I can look at reports and make a decision from that. And I guess, you know, maybe you can submit some of your questions or points in a report or something, and, you know, I can help me with that as well. I mean, I was taking some notes and everything, and I appreciate your input and everything, so I have it down here to, you know, help make the decision.
And I would echo that. I'm very happy that you came. I know we've had our little exchange here, but I appreciate you coming more than you can imagine, because this is the kind of information that we need to get. We need to ask the hard questions, and we need to pursue and get answers. And I think, you know, whether it's Chad and Fred, you know, in our engineering department, talk about the relative benefits of equipment. So I want you to know that, you know, you and I have had our moments, and George and I, you know, have our little exchange, but I appreciate it, I really do. I want you to know that.
well, the whole point here, and why I'm here, was hopefully not necessarily to squelch this idea, but to throw some more light on it, just like you said. But you know, if you wanna save money, this is another question I got, is how does the city determine which projects you do in-house versus subbing them out?
That, you know, that would be a supervisor's decision in most cases, I guess. That, there's not a 100% rule on that, but as the project comes up, we look at what, and this is, I guess somebody fill in, because I'm just kind of going with this.
Oh, you're
It's,
exactly
you look
right.
at the project, you look at what equipment we have, we look at what expertise we have, we look at how much time we have, and, you know, factor that all in and say, this is a project for us, or this is something we do, you know, out of house, or not in-house. Right, but that's, so I would say in
Sure,
most
that
cases,
does.
that's the way.
That's gotta be department supervisor level.
Well, you know, one example that I have here is you wanna buy equipment to help the creek and whatever. Well, why do we take bids on cement work, sidewalk work that's the city's responsibility? Why doesn't the city wanna jump in on the sidewalk issue? And put your own sidewalk in on the boulevard? I mean, that'd save you, I think the last bid was like $83,000 or $93,000 to put the city's responsibility in for sidewalks. And I would think that would be a much better way of cutting costs than buying, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars in machinery. Something to think about. We got one more deal. I've got, I wrote this up. I said, I hope by appearing before the commission does not taint the work relationship that I have with the street department or the commissioners. However, as a taxpayer and businessman in this community, I'm concerned this purchase is not justifiable. The city of Madison wants to promote itself as a place for businesses to relocate. Please don't step on the toes of existing businesses. Thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, anything else? George?
You know, I can't believe that somebody sitting on this commission doesn't know the size of the pit. I can't believe that Fred doesn't know the size of the pit. He's the public works guy. But when it comes to the creek, I don't know if any of you guys have ever walked the creek in late fall or early spring. And you could solve a lot of your problems with that walk down the creek. People rake their leaves in there. People cut branches off the tree and throw in there. They throw wood in there off their building. They throw tires in there. If you'd walk along, you could stop this. Where this is at, by these places, find them. Do something. But, you know, you don't know the size of the pit. You don't know how you're going to move it around. You know, a used excavator, the first little bubble is going to be $20,000 to fix. And I've seen that out to Prairie Village with a skid steer. You just, these sort of things, you know, to me, that's the last thing you need. And from the understanding I have, if you've changed your money pool, it used to be there was an account for a new fire truck and a new garbage truck. Now you put it all in one pool so you can draw out of and do things like this. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, you're right.
To a certain
In the
degree,
public works
to a certain degree. There's still a fire truck reserve, and I believe there's still a garbage truck reserve, but for certain parts of equipment,
And the
yeah,
public
so.
But you know, and I don't mean this in a way, but I sat up here for 15 years, and every year, the supervisors brought their budget in, and it's up to you guys to go through that budget and say, is this a want or a need? Because I'll guarantee you, there's a lot of just wants on that list.
Well, there still is. We still have to, it still goes through that process, because just like tonight, we still vote on it. So that isn't gone away.
But the thing
We just
is-
don't do it all at once at one
And
time of the
I
year.
didn't read the whole article, so I don't know this, but when you raised the electrical rates, was that to balance your budget?
In the electric fund, yeah.
You know, somewhere along the line, you gotta slow down on spending money.
Let's restate that. You said is it to balance the budget in the electrical fund. We didn't do it to balance the general
No,
fund.
I understand
Well,
that.
but that was the impression that was
Yeah, I
given there.
understand that, but, you know, what you gotta, somewhere along the line, you guys gotta say no. You can't do everything, you can't give everything to your supervisors.
I understand, George.
George, there's no profit coming out of the electric department. The increase in electric rates is simply to keep it in the black so it doesn't cost any money.
And that's partly because you don't charge the industry in this town what it cost us for
Okay,
electricity.
okay, well, let's keep to this
Yeah.
particular subject so we can,
Okay, but I've said my piece. I think the
Thank you.
excavator is the last thing you need to buy.
thank you.
Thank you, George. The question on the table is, we have a motion to approve the specifications on a used excavator and set the date of bid letting for 10 a.m., October 10th. Any further questions or speaking on that motion?
Again, let's make it very clear. When we get out to bids, there will still be another vote before it's purchased, and I think that's a good time, if not before then, to have all of these questions answered.
Typically, that would be the following Monday, which would probably be the 15th,
16th, I believe it is.
16th,
After the bid opening.
after the
Yep.
bid opening.
So,
That would be the 15th.
15th, I stand corrected.
Yeah. Any further questions or speaking? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion is carried. Thank you. That concludes the new business section. We have a call for an executive session according to SDCL 1-25-2 paren 4. Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
So move.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to go into executive session. Okay.